Regional Government, Assembly of Delegates, November 5th at 4 p.m. in the Mary Pat Flynn Conference Center in the Courthouse Complex, and we are ready to go. Would you please read the, can I give you mine?
All right, Madam Speaker. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates will be conducted both in person and via remote means in accordance with the applicable laws. Members of the public may watch the meeting through live real-time broadcast at www.youtube.com/user/Barnstable County. A public participation guide and meeting documents are available in advance at www.capecod.gov. The County of Barnstable does not discriminate in the administration of its programs or activities on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or other category protected by state and federal anti-discrimination laws and regulations. Reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities are available upon request. For more information or to file a complaint, please contact Justina Marchak, Barnstable County ADA Non-Discrimination Coordinator at jmarczak@capecod.gov, call 508-375-6646, or visit www.capecod.gov. Members of the public may also attend the meeting remotely through Microsoft Teams. That link is available on the county website.
All right. I would do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, Madam Speaker, Delegate Frederickson. Delegate Frederickson. Delegate Frizel. Delegate Fuller.
Here.
Delegate Gallagher.
Here.
Delegate Green.
Here.
Delegate Harder.
Here.
Delegate Killian.
Here.
Delegate King. Here. Dean Omen. Delegate O'Malley. Here. Delegate Sampson. Delegate Ty.
Here.
Delegate Warner, or Speaker Warner.
Here.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Here.
Deputy Speaker Gessen.
Here.
Madam Speaker, that's 11 delegates representing 58.79% of the county's population.
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay. Can we have a vote?
Delegate Frederickson. Delegate Frizel. Delegate Fuller.
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Delegate Green.
Yes, and I'm not hearing Speaker Warner all the time that she's speaking.
That was because I hadn't had my microphone on. I apologize.
No worries.
Delegate-
I just didn't know if it was me. Thank you.
Delegate Harder.
Yes.
Delegate Killian.
Yes.
Delegate King. Dean Omen. Delegate O'Malley. Yes. Delegate Sampson. Delegate Sampson. Delegate Ty.
Yes.
Delegate Warner.
Yes.
Or Speaker Warner. I'll fix that. Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gessen.
Yeah.
All right. That is 10 delegates representing 55.91% of the county's population.
So moved. Second.
We can't hear the motion.
Let me repeat the motion. May I have a motion to adopt the order of business for the Assembly of Delegates regular meeting of November 5th?
So moved. Second.
Delegate Frederickson. Delegate Frederickson, Delegate Frizel, Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder,
Yes.
Delegate Killian,
Yes.
Delegate King,
Yes.
Dean Omen, Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Delegate Sampson, Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo,
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Kessin.
Yeah.
All right, Madam Speaker, that's 11, representing 58.79% of the county's population.
Mr. Clerk, I am on, but the computer is not allowing me and I'm blocked out on that. I'm on my phone as well, which I can now speak, but I'll try to
We-
get the computer working right.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, but you're not hearing me on my computer, but you can hear me on my phone. So-
All right, thank you very much, Delegate.
You could just leave it on.
No, you can't.
No, I can't. It'll
Feedback.
affect the others. May I have a motion to go into a committee of the whole to consider items under communications and reports from officers and committee? Oh. No, you get, I came one too many down, right? Okay. Go ahead,
Second.
Would you like a roll call, Madam Speaker?
please.
Delegate Frederickson. Delegate Frederickson?
Yeah, on the phone,
All right.
yes.
Delegate Frizel? Delegate Fuller?
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher?
Yes.
Delegate Green?
Yes.
Delegate Harder?
Yes.
Delegate Killian?
Yes.
Delegate King?
Yes.
Dean Omen? Delegate O'Malley?
Yes.
Delegate Sampson? Delegate Ty? Speaker Warner?
Yes.
Delegate Wyman
Yes.
Colombo? And Deputy
Yes.
Speaker Gaston. That, I believe, is 12, representing 80%, 80.16% of the county's population.
So is it,
Public hearing.
we just say public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go on to the public hearing.
Right, so I have to show those up.
Okay, on the proposed ordinance 2025-12, amending the job description for the clerk of the Assembly of Delegates. The public hearing is open. Is there anyone here from the public to speak on the proposed ordinance? No? Seeing none on? No? All right, the public hearing is closed. Is there any public comment? No. Okay, now we move to the communications from the regional commissioners, administrator, and directors, and I see that we have Director Michael Dutton. Or Administrator Michael Dutton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Welcome, new Delegate King. It's good to have you. I use this opportunity just to go over some of the items that the Board of Regional Commissioners dealt with this morning, just as an update, nothing terribly controversial. Carol Capolo, the Finance Director, gave first quarter financial results, which were roughly in line with where we have been over the past few years for first quarter. We had my voice goes on forever. We had a request for a support letter for the supplemental nutrition program. And the commissioners voted that. The commissioners also, actually, I should add that they voted that with one minor edit, which merely added the number of SNAP recipients on the Cape, just as one of the whereases, which I think you may have in your packets. They were also asked to support an act relative to refundable Title V septic tax credits, which was a bill filed by Cape Representative, House Bill 4082, and they did approve that support letter as well. And then the most important thing was adoption of the 2026 holiday schedule. And then among other items in their consent agenda, they did approve a number of grants, a couple of grants, mostly for the buy local effort. They also supported adopted fund grants for the I hate listening to myself. For the Shine program, an additional $57,000.
Delegate Frederickson, can you mute if you're not talking? Because both of them open, it's creating feedback.
And that is basically my report. I did want to also add that I will be sending you a copy. The commissioners did review a memo, a draft memorandum that I had written concerning the budget timeline. I think I've had a conversation with the speaker as well as the finance chair some time ago, and then more recently with the new speaker about trying to streamline some of our budget efforts, which I think will help the assembly, certainly will help the commissioners, and I will forward that along as soon as I get back to my computer. But it doesn't really change a whole lot. I'll give you the abridged version. It allows me to present the budget, the county's general fund budget, as well as the enterprise fund budget in one session. So you would get me just presenting the whole budget. Your practice is generally to take those budgets and carve them up and allocate them to different committees, which would obviously continue. And then the opportunity for department heads to come into those committee meetings and answer more detailed questions will still be there. So really the only major change for your purposes would be me presenting the entire budget as it's been voted by the commissioners, and then your process kind of goes from there. But that's, we're trying to make sure that the department heads are used as appropriately as possible and not coming back for repeated meetings. And so we'll see how it works, and we'll accommodate any department head that the assembly wants to see, certainly. But that's kind of where we're going. So, but I will forward that to the clerk, and so you can all get a copy of that. So. Yep. And that's all I have.
Delegate Harder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I got a little confused this morning. You will present the budget, and I assume Director Capola will be with you, and you will present the budget, the two of you, to the Board of Commissioners.
Correct.
And they will approve it and then send it to us. And our committees are where the department directors and all will be laying out their budgets, so they're not going to do it for the commissioners first. They're just going to do us first, right? They're not.
So I will, right. I think another way of saying it, I will present the budget to the commissioners. The commissioners always have the opportunity to bring in the department heads if they want, but I suspect that they may bring in a couple with budgets that they have particular concerns about or questions about. Otherwise, the next iteration will come to the assembly. The commissioner's budget will come to the assembly. I will present A to Z, just to be able to provide a consistent and clear outline of the budget. And then, but then once you send it to committees, then the department heads can come in and, that's really the place where the detailed questions should be asked.
That's great. Saves so much time for the staff. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to just say something about that. I think last year we did try, as you remember, a couple of different ways of approaching it. Some of them worked okay, some of them didn't work at all. And so we're trying to look at it from a different standpoint. And when we sat down and looked at how many times some of the directors came in and presented either to the group as a whole and or to the subcommittees, and sometimes it was more than one, it was extreme. And there seemed to be a better way to do it. And so we're going to approach it this way. And what will be important is, as we get the materials ahead of time, as we usually do for each of both the major budget and then also for the committee meetings, it is going to be important for us to read that material first, because that's where the questions will be asked. And it's our hope that we only have to do that once, that we don't have to bring them back and back and back again. So it will need us to take a look at the materials that we receive, so we can hone in on anything that we might have a particular interest in. But I think it's a good idea, and I'm hoping that it streamlines the entire process for everyone and makes it go a lot more smoothly. So thank you for that. Of the Cape Cod Commission, who are going to present the regional policy plan, which has received some attention in certain areas, but it's not like the one that we reviewed several years ago, which was a complete overwrite. Okay. Director Senatori?
Great. Thank you, Madam Speaker, delegates, for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. I am Christy Senatori, the Executive Director of the Cape Cod Commission. We are pleased to share with you the final draft of the Regional Policy Plan that was approved by the Cape Cod Commission on October 16th. This draft is the result of many months of work, not only by the Commission members and staff, but by stakeholders, leaders, and community members from across the Cape, all contributing to this plan really to make sure that it's responsive to the needs of the Cape today. As you know, we presented a draft to the Assembly of Delegates during the public comment period this fall, and we are back today to present to you the ordinance for your review. As you know, we held a 60-day public comment period, which was extended for an additional 30 days to allow for public comments to be heard and received. And we also held a number of public hearings and opportunities for feedback on the draft language that is before you today. So we plan to share with you today some of the updates that have been made to the plan in response to the public comments, in addition to highlighting some of the areas in the plan that are new. I'm joined by several staff members from the Cape Cod Commission here today. And if you have specific questions, we would be glad to address them and try to answer them after our presentation. So I'll now hand it to Chloe Schaefer, our Chief Planner, who will provide an overview of some of the changes to the draft plan. So again, thank you for your time this afternoon, and I'll hand it to Chloe.
Thanks, Christy. Thank you all. As Christy said, my name is Chloe Schaefer. I'm the Chief Planner here at the Commission. And I am going to walk through some of the newer elements in this 2025 Regional Policy Plan relative to the 2018 one, as well as highlighting some of the key themes we received in terms of public comment and some of the changes made in response to that. So we received more than 100 comments on the draft regional policy plan, and we've grouped them broadly into these 5 different categories. There were several comments really urging protection of our natural resources, supporting recommendations, goals, and objectives related to that. We did add some more language around the importance of our ponds in response to some of those comments, as well as some more language related to biodiversity and the importance of that for the region as well. Several comments also were related to understanding that we have finite resources in the region and recognizing that. We had made a change to our growth policy, adding in finite there to recognize our finite resources. And also adjusted some language in one of the recommended actions around aquifer protection planning to really better understand the capacity of that finite resource for the region. Several comments were also in support of many of the proposed new recommended actions, particularly developing a regional open space plan, the other recommended actions related to water protection and planning, and the numerous actions related to addressing our housing challenges. There are also a number of comments related to an inclusion of metrics to really understand the region's progress. This is a recommended action within the plan, but that was expanded upon and really provided some more detail around that to describe development of an online viewer that would really provide more comprehensively numerous metrics to really track our progress in terms of the regional policy plan, but also looking at all the numerous metrics throughout our issue-specific regional plans as well. And then the last broad category here, comments related to replacement of the canal bridges and the potential impacts of that. And this is certainly something Cape Cod Commission staff are continuing to follow up, comment on that permitting process related to the bridges as that advances. So next, the 2025 RPP contains a chapter on our key regional priorities. The 2018 RPP had a chapter on our regional challenges. This has been reworked to really be more forward-looking and action-oriented. So now focusing in on these 7 key regional priorities to guide our regional planning work for the next several years. This includes protecting our open space and natural resources, restoring and protecting coastal and freshwater quality, mitigating climate change and adapting to its impacts, continuing to preserve our historic and cultural resources, increasing housing attainability, planning and providing for necessary infrastructure, and continuing to strengthen our economy. The growth policy is also very similar to the 2018 regional policy plan, though there are some edits here. It really remains one focusing growth in those centers of activity and areas that have the infrastructure to support it, and guiding it away from those sensitive areas that should be protected for ecological, historical, or other reasons. It states that development should be responsive to context, allowing for the restoration, preservation, and protection of the Cape's unique and finite resources, while promoting economic, environmental, and community resilience. And that finite was added before resources in the second sentence there. Also added is environmental at the end there, really to emphasize the continuing need to promote our environmental resilience as well. There are several goals and objectives across the specific issue areas, still grouped with this organizing principle of our natural built-in community systems, which was something the 2018 regional policy plan did. Several of the goals and objectives had some modest changes made to them, but there were a couple that saw some more substantive changes. The climate change issue area, this was added in 2021 through an amendment to the RPP as climate mitigation, but based on feedback throughout the stakeholder process, it's now has been expanded to encompass climate change more broadly, both mitigating it as well as adapting to its impacts. And there is a new objective within this issue area, specifically looking at adapting to the impacts of climate change, increasing the region's resiliency there. The economy goal and objectives were also rewritten significantly to better align with the new comprehensive economic development strategy that we completed in 2024. And also one thing to note in response to public comment received, the first open space objective contained passive in front of recreation, and that was removed in response to feedback received there. Next, there were some changes made to the natural areas place type. It is no longer mapped, but rather relies on underlying resources such as biomap, core habitat, wetlands, which are mapped. It also no longer contains the floodplains. Much of our floodplain in the region is developed. This is now really comprehensively regulated through our coastal resiliency technical bulletin. And it does include undeveloped areas now in wellhead protection areas. And then this section, certainly a lot of new regional plans and updated regional plans since the 2018 RPP. The climate action plan is new since then, as well as the freshwater strategy and the regional housing strategy. We also have a new comprehensive economic development strategy, transportation plan, and certainly have advanced the 208 plan as well. So a section certainly discussing these new plans, but also these are important when we think about the metrics and looking at progress the region is making. These contain different ways to measure progress within these specific issue areas as well, and are something that we'll be looking at to track through that broader online data viewer. And then the recommended actions section, this is certainly new relative to the 2018 RPP. Grouped by systems here, the natural systems recommended actions, there are 6. Regional open space plan, really looking to identify those areas to be prioritized in terms of open space protection and preservation in the region. This was revised slightly to note that it will align with the state's biodiversity plan. Also actions here relating to supporting implementation of the state's farmland action plan and updating the ocean management plan. A couple of actions related to aquifer protection, developing an advanced dynamic groundwater model. There was some language added, as I noted earlier, to advancing aquifer protection planning, to note that it would also be looking at examining the capacity of the aquifer and better understanding that finite resource. And certainly that will be informed by the development of that advanced dynamic groundwater model. And then the other recommended action here, looking to develop model wetland bylaws for pond and buffer protection. Some language added here to note that the commission will certainly help towns facilitate their adoption and implementation of those regulations moving forward. Under built systems, there are 7 recommended actions. Looking at advancing actions to reduce risk in the flood zone, developing a regional capital plan, looking to support efforts for collaboration on waste diversion and disposal options, as well as implementation of the Cape Cod Vision Zero action plan. Also looking to support local climate action planning and implementation initiatives, regional as well as local initiatives there. And then looking to support post-disaster planning initiatives, which kind of goes hand in hand with looking at climate action. There was some language added to the supporting post-disaster planning initiatives recommended action to emphasize that in doing so, it would be looking at those areas that would be suitable, that could handle redevelopment in the wake of a significant climate-induced disaster, where the region could rebuild, and guiding it away from those potentially sensitive areas within our region. So that was something that was elaborated on there. And then under the recommended action to continue to support replacement of the Bourne and Sagamore bridges, there's some changes made to underscore the need for multimodal improvements, including looking at the longer term impacts of that. And then under community systems, also 7 recommended actions here. A couple up top, really continuing initiatives or planning projects that we have undertaken or continue to undertake, looking at expanding our understanding of underrepresented histories, supporting new and updated historic inventories throughout the region, which is a critical first step in ensuring their protection of those resources, maintaining a comprehensive economic development strategy, which is important for our economic district designation, and also looking to encourage regulations that can protect our historic and archaeological resources as well. in response to public comment, again, around really concerns for protecting our natural and sensitive areas and ensuring that redevelopment and development happens in those appropriate locations that has infrastructure and can support it. There were some tweaks made to the language around supporting zoning changes for greater housing opportunities and convening a funding and financing working group for housing initiatives to ensure that those efforts really still continue to emphasize and focus on ensuring that any development and redevelopment happens in those appropriate locations. And then the seventh recommended action here, looking to support our towns and as they look to implement the Affordable Homes Act and utilize the tools that are available to them through that. So with that, certainly we're all here, happy to take any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions at this time? Delegate? Mhm.
Thank you, Chief Planner Schaefer, for the presentation. There's a lot to get our arms around, but specifically you referenced post-disaster planning initiatives and your support for them. Can you give us a little detail on what these initiatives are and how the Cape Cod Commission supports them?
Madam Speaker, if I may, certainly. So this is something that we would be looking to support. These initiatives haven't been undertaken yet, but as we look to really prepare the region in terms of climate change and the impacts that we are seeing, this is something that we would be providing support, technical assistance on developing these initiatives to identify in the wake of a significant disaster, where should we be looking to redevelop as a region and kind of where would we go from there? I don't know if other commission staff want to weigh in, but.
So can you just give a little bit of detail on what sort of disasters we're talking about? We talking about man-made ones or natural disasters or both?
So this is more specifically looking at natural disasters, especially I think those that would be exacerbated by climate change and the impacts that we are seeing from there. But I'm happy if any other commission staff would like to jump in there.
Yeah, I could just add in, and I think so, if I may, Heather McElroy, Natural Resource Manager at the Commission. I think Chloe has covered it, but yes, the idea here is to prepare the region to think about how we will redevelop after likely a natural disaster from a severe coastal storm, a hurricane, potentially also from wildfire. But I think our focus has been on coastal storms and the impacts that might have on the region.
So just specifically, what are you offering? You going to provide guidance on how areas should be rebuilt different than the way they were before? Or what specifically, what support and of these initiatives are we talking about? Because I'm just not getting that answer.
I think that's to be determined to some
Okay.
extent. And I think it is something that we would be working with communities sort of individually on. We've heard from town staff for many years now about their interest in being prepared to respond to a disaster, and from the nitty gritty of a major event has happened and what are we doing with the debris and how are we disposing of it, from those kinds of things to the bigger picture. We have large areas that have been impacted, and we know that specific areas are vulnerable to flooding. Does it make sense to rebuild in these areas, or how can we facilitate the reconstruction and the revisioning of our communities? So a
Thank you.
planning effort. Yeah.
Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the commission for making a presentation today and for being here to answer questions and for all the hard work that you've done on the RPP. It's a lot of time, effort, and energy that has gone into this. I what Delegate Killian was just saying brings to mind a lot of questions for me as well about disaster planning. But I'm curious. The Assembly was given the opportunity to have a presentation, as you said, after the draft RPP was written, and some of the delegates, including myself, did take the time to read the entire RPP. I've attended numerous meetings. I've made public comments along the way, as have several of the delegates that I'm aware of. I would very much appreciate, since you're asking us to vote on adopting the RPP, for you to provide to us a document where you show us the comments that we've made and the suggestions we've made and what you have done to take the comments and questions we have had seriously and revise the document in any way, shape, or form. Is that a probability, a possibility? And can we expect that?
To the speaker, I'm happy to respond to Delegate Green's question, and thank you for participating in the process and sharing your feedback and comments along the way. I know you've been very actively involved. And as Chloe mentioned, we did receive over 100 comments on the regional policy plan itself. We tried to provide you that summary today as opposed to going through each one of those and provide the high-level overview of those topic areas and how we incorporated many of those comments into the draft itself. We do, however, have a very large spreadsheet that we would be happy to share. It is posted on our website. If you weren't able to track it down, we're happy to share a link to that so that you have it and you can go through and see how each individual comment was responded to and incorporated into the regional policy plan. So happy to share that with you directly, Delegate Green, but we'll share that with the clerk as well, and he can make sure that that gets distributed to the rest of the Assembly.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That will be very helpful in my review of the changes that have been made. I've started to read through it and look for those, but this will be very helpful. The other thing that Delegate Killian just brought up is disaster planning. I mean, you're talking about natural disasters. Are you also planning for man-made disasters? Let's say, I know that there is a citizens group that's very active in Barnstable, for instance, that's very concerned about the battery storage facility, which has already caught on fire once, and there's dielectric fluids that could, if they are unleashed into the groundwater, could be a disaster. And of course, on the Outer Cape, if the wind turbines are built offshore, and we know the leases were sold, we just saw the problem with the wind turbine blade plunging into the ocean off of Nantucket and the Vineyard. Are we talking about those kinds of disasters as well? Are you planning for those kinds of disasters or others?
Through the speaker, I'm happy to respond to this one as well.
Please.
Thank you again for your question, Delegate Green. I think this is a forward-looking planning effort that we intend to undertake at the Commission, really working with the stakeholders within the communities to understand some of the post-disaster planning that's needed. looking at climate-related disasters is certainly going to be a priority, but there will be other types of interests that we need to make sure we're looking out for. So this is definitely something that we intend to look at in the future as one of the recommendations in the regional policy plan, and I do think that that will likely take a variety of different forms and within each of the communities. Steve Tupper, our Deputy Director, has also done some work in this area, and so I'm going to see if he might be able to add a couple of remarks to be a little bit more responsive to your thoughts there, Delegate Green.
You know, and I did want to make mention also, it's not just the folks in Barnstable that I've had information sent to me about. It's also, and I know Heather has heard this at the Cape Cod National Seashore Advisory Commission. The commissioner from Provincetown is also very concerned, as are people in Provincetown, because there's a huge battery storage facility there. So, I mean, there are a lot of issues that could be man-made, that could be disaster related. Yeah.
Thank you, Christy. And through the speaker, if I could add a little bit to that, Stephen Tupper, Deputy Director at the Commission, did want to highlight in terms of this disaster planning. We talked about some of the planning that would need to happen in terms of redevelopment. We also are thinking about infrastructure. So whether it be climate or any other sort of disaster, if there's a major piece of infrastructure that is lost in that event, we do want to be proactively thinking about what that means for the future. There's often a rush post-disaster to simply replace everything that was there in kind. But if we can be a little more proactive and think about what sort of infrastructure investments would be best for the community in the long term, the idea is to get ahead of that, think about the development, think about the infrastructure, what would be best for our community in the wake of those disasters, and do it in a calm manner in a time that we have the time to make really strategic decisions rather than a gut reaction based on the response to disaster, whatever kind of disaster that may be.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? I'm seeing none from the floor. All right, well, I believe that I should have introduced this as a possible ordinance. And so I'm going to say that at this point, that what we've just heard will be given a specific ordinance number and thing going forward so that we'll be able to refer to it back to. I'm sorry that I forgot to do that in the beginning. I think we pretty much covered it. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Christy, Director Salvatore, does the Assembly have to have a public hearing on this final draft, or is that up to before we vote on the RPP, or is that something we do? Is it us or you or both?
So through the speaker, and certainly Owen can, the clerk can jump in and correct us if I'm wrong, but we did hold several public hearings throughout the process of adopting the regional policy plan at the commission level. We've now sent that to you as an ordinance, and I believe that you'll be required to have a public hearing before you vote that ordinance and submit it to the county commissioners for signature.
Thanks so much.
Director Senatori is, as she almost always is right. And so we do have to have a public hearing, which we will publish in the Cape Cod Times for the 19th, I believe is our next meeting. And I also understand under the Commission Act, we have a 45-day trigger after receipt to either approve the ordinance or to send it back with suggestions. And so I believe that means that we have to vote it one way or another by the first meeting in December, which I think is December 3rd. And any ordinance that we, kind of like the budget, any ordinance that we adopt that has to go over to the county commissioners for either approval within 10 days or rejection. So.
Thank you very much. It was a great presentation, and I think that there's definitely food for thought for the next meeting and perhaps we can be lucky and get through it then and vote for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Let's see. Okay, first we have, because the assembly will convene. Okay. And first we have a report on the Assembly of Delegates Standing Committee on Government Affairs and Rules meeting of October 22nd, 2025. Delegate Killian, can you read the report as a member of the committee because I'm currently presiding chair?
Okay. Okay, we got it. So the committee reviewed the Labor Council's opinion regarding the proposed ordinance to amend the Assembly clerk's job description and discussed both the substance of the opinion and the process by which it was obtained. Members questioned who requested the legal review, why it was sought without Assembly authorization, and which budget covered the expense, agreeing that the future legal consultation should occur transparently between Assembly leadership and county administration. Several delegates suggested revisions to clarify that any termination of the clerk be initiated by the Speaker with the support of the majority of the Assembly, while others emphasized preserving shared authority and consistency with existing one-person, one-vote procedures. Additional suggestions included consulting human resources on personnel procedures, clarifying whether executive sessions are permissible, and considering both the hiring and firing process for potential refinement. The committee agreed that the Speaker would seek to clarify from the administration regarding the legal opinion that myself, Delegate Killian, and Delegate Oman are sponsors, and we would prepare possible revised language for discussion at the upcoming public hearing in future meetings. The committee also unanimously voted to recommend proposed resolution to 2025-11 to ensure a clear and fair procedure aligning with Robert's Rules of Order and to avoid any ambiguity in leadership succession during meetings.
Thank you, Delegate Killian. May I have a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2025-11
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Delegate Harder?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thought our meeting about this was very good. And I think that while there are other questions to be asked legally, like executive session, I do believe we should vote on this today. I strongly support.
This is,
Thank you.
excuse me, this is not the right time for that particular subject. So
We're on the resolution.
2511. Manual governance amendments,
the Manual of Governments and Procedures.
succession of leadership.
Right, but in describing, in doing your memo about it, you mentioned the legal opinions about, like, you mentioned that we were talking about maybe
Yeah.
getting an opinion on executive session.
If I may, Madam Speaker, this review was for multiple subjects we took up. And the first one now on the agenda is 2511.
Have any additional discussion?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just the question, I understand the impetus behind creating this. However, it's kind of unclear in terms of how this will be set up. So in other words, we're going to have a meeting, and theoretically the speaker and the deputy speaker are unavailable to run the meeting, and then we're going to go through some process to determine who is going to be the speaker based on who's present in the room. Correct? Owen's looking at me funny. I don't know what.
This was actually designed so You don't need the nominations, the votes, any of that stuff. In the absence of the speaker and the deputy speaker, whoever is in the room who's the longest serving member of the assembly is automatically the speaker pro temp. If there's two people who've served the same amount of time, whoever is older in age is automatically the speaker pro temp. If that person goes to the bathroom, the next person up is speaker pro temp. The whole point is to put something in the rules so that you don't have to think about this at all ever anymore.
But that was my question or
Yeah.
comment, that we will not be able to determine that until 3:59 of a meeting is who happens to be in the room at the time. And that's how we determine who will be running the meeting.
Absolutely. If you knew the amount of times that previous speakers and deputy speakers were talking amongst themselves about who could cover and who was going to be here and who was going to be late, that's kind of the purpose of this, is to like, we'll whoever is here in the absence of those two people, which should be rare, is the speaker pro temp and is running the meeting until one of those two people is available. Was the intent.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wasn't present for the meeting and didn't participate in the discussion. I'm looking at this text for the first time. And I'm struck by a redundancy regarding length of service, in that there is a clause that says if two or more members have equal lengths of service, which is followed by a clause that says the member present who is senior in both age and years of service, which seems unnecessary to me. I would appreciate clarification.
That was discussed at the meeting. You and Delegate Harder happen to be the same years of service because you were sworn in and elected at the same time. And so if somehow you were the two people who were the longest serving at the meeting, whichever one of you is older, it's meant to make sure that, you know, you could have half the assembly that has the same years of service. So it's meant to that additional clause is meant to clarify if two people have the same time of service, which one is actually the speaker pro tem.
Madam Speaker.
Deputy Speaker Gessen?
Just to also follow up on the explanation the clerk just gave, the discussion was had with Delegate Harder, who raised the same concern in the meeting. It's not beautifully written. However, it's legally necessary because if we didn't use that redundancy, then legally speaking, the text would say that if two people have served the same amount of time on the assembly and are both present at the meeting, then whoever is older, not of those two people, but whoever's older in the room, period, becomes the speaker pro temp. So it's you need that redundancy so that you are not deciding in this like funky way that you're only deciding who's older amongst the two people that have served the same period of time, not amongst the whole assembly. Does that make sense?
No. Wait. So who would like to go? Are you still explaining, Deputy Director, or? No, okay.
If that was a sufficient explanation, if I didn't sufficiently explain, which is very likely, I'm happy to expound.
If I may, as Clerk Fletcher is an expert on Robert's rules, how far do we have to drill down till we get to a coin flip? Maybe we should say.
I think if everybody in the assembly in the room had the same level of service and the same birthday, I don't know what we do then.
Delegate Gallagher?
I would just say that to my non-legal mind, it would be sufficient to say, if two or more members have equal lengths of service, the member present who is senior in age shall serve as the speaker pro tem.
That's what Dan said. No.
I yield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, I know, I had the same thing, because you and I we like to edit, and we like things to be grammatically correct, yada, yada. As Dan said, legally, if we don't repeat years of service, then it would be the oldest person. If two people have the same length of service, then the speaker would be the oldest person in the room. That's why you have to be redundant, because otherwise it wouldn't be the older of the two or three. It would be the oldest person in the room. Legally,
it
they're
now.
stupid legally, and so we have to do everything.
Delegate Frederickson.
Hi, this is very interesting language. It's one of those things in a few years from now, people are gonna look at it and say, were they on crack or something when they were writing this thing? I suggest we go back and look at something simpler. That'd be my suggestion.
Thank you. Any other? If there are no other questions, we're going to go for a roll call.
Delegate Frederickson,
No,
Delegate Frizel, Delegate Fuller,
No.
Delegate Gallagher,
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder,
Yes,
Delegate Killian,
No.
Delegate King.
Yes.
Delegate Omen, Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo,
No.
Deputy Speaker Gessen.
Yeah.
Strangely, I think that's nine yeses for 49.55% of the county's population and 4 noes at 39.54. So that motion does not pass.
Of the, sorry, I'm going to recognize Delegate Killian as one of the sponsors of the ordinance. Delegate Killian. Oh, no, that was for the other. This is for the report from the Assembly of Delegates Standing.
We actually are on a discussion of the,
We're on this.
well, yeah, but,
Yeah, so didn't he already speak on that?
but he's the sponsor.
Oh, as a sponsor, you didn't get to speak on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Next on the calendar is Stan.
It is the discussion. Just the discussion.
It's a discussion on which,
On
2025?
the, or, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
The numbers are confusing tonight because the ordinances and the resolutions are all around the same number.
Point of order, we can't hear anything in the room.
Next on the calendar is the discussion of ordinance 2025-12, amending the job description of the clerk of the Assembly of Delegates. And as one of the sponsors, I'm going to recognize Delegate Killian.
So what we're talking about is not necessarily the description. What the ordinance that we proposed was how we would hire and fire the delegate, I mean, the clerk. And so Delegate Omen and I reviewed how the process was currently undertaken and felt that there was room for improvement. And so we had proposed an ordinance which involved the assembly to a greater detail or to a greater extent in the firing and even hiring of the clerk. And since that time, we've had a legal opinion, again, which we didn't solicit, but we have one nonetheless. And we've had discussions about this topic as well. And some a fair amount of information has come forward. And as Delegate Omen and myself have said, that perhaps we can add some language to this to make it a better ordinance. but it's certainly open for discussion. We haven't had it before the full assembly, but this is the opportunity for that.
So this would be the time to weigh in. Delegate Harder, am I?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really hate to waste our time with lawyers and money, just because they did. But I'm wondering if we made an amendment saying no discussion of personal problems would be discussed in open session. I mean, for example, this morning, the commissioners did go over Michael Dutton's annual review. So obviously you can discuss things in open meeting, but the lawyer, the opinion, call it that had no idea how we staff at the assembly, did raise an interesting concern about not having the assembly sit around in a meeting like this and say, so-and-so is an idiot, so-and-so is doing a really bad job. And so what would be the mechanism for the assembly to discuss the reason for firing someone should that occasion arise? So I'm wondering if there's a line we could put in to cover that, because the worry is we don't want to disparage anyone in public.
Thank you. I don't understand why they would have reviewed in a public forum in the first place. And it would suggest to me, based on the information that we received from the legal counsel, that the description she provided us would have also applied to any kind of reviews or any kind of good or bad reviews being placed out in the public forum. So I don't know why that was done. Do we have any? Recourse? I mean, I don't. Okay. Go ahead, Deputy Speaker.
I would just like to speak to the meeting. I think the government affairs meeting was very helpful. I know Delegate Killian, Delegate Oman are hoping to continue working on this ordinance, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. But specifically, I want to speak to the question of the legal memorandum that we got and the way the committee discussed it, and also kind of the response that we got from the administration on our concerns. Over the course of the committee discussion, I know I, for one, I don't want to speak for the whole committee, brought up the fact that I was not very comfortable with the fact that the administration went ahead and got a legal opinion on an ordinance of the assembly, a legal opinion on an ordinance of the assembly that didn't seek to improve the ordinance, but sought to essentially tell the assembly, don't bother with an ordinance that has to do with assembly business. I wasn't very comfortable with that kind of legal opinion coming to the assembly without any prior consideration of the assembly's interest in the ordinance or questions that we might have legally. On the flip side, however, I think the opinion wasn't altogether useless, despite my concerns with the way it was gotten and the lack of communication with the assembly ahead of time. I think there were some useful points raised, and I think broadly we agreed on that at the committee hearing, and that's why Delegate Killian, Delegate Oman, and other delegates are looking forward to continuing the discussion around this ordinance and continuing to work on it. And that's why I assume it's not on the agenda today for a vote, because there are valid concerns. But we got a response from the administration that I think fully and holistically misinterpreted our concerns with the legal opinion, really pushing back and asserting that they had a right to get it because it had to do with employee work. So I think on the record, I just want to reiterate concern never was and never is about the administration getting legal opinions to better understand our ordinances or how we work with our staff and how it pertains to their human resources. That is not the problem. My concern is when the administration doesn't take the time to speak with assembly leadership, assembly committees about the legal opinions they want to request. And therefore, we end up with legal opinions that do not reflect the current reasons why the assembly moved forward with ordinances and the questions that we would also like to get answered. I believe it would have been a much better use of county resources and a much better use of attorney time if the assembly had gotten to weigh in ahead of time and we could have gotten a legal opinion that actually helps us improve this ordinance rather than a broadly uninformed opinion that told us again to, give up and don't bother with this ordinance. It's none of your business to deal with. I don't think that's the way we should work together with the administration going forward. And my hope is that the takeaway to the administration from that committee hearing is not that we don't want them getting legal opinions, but it's that if you want to, and if you're going to, please engage with the assembly ahead of time so that we can work together to get questions answered that we all want answered. My 2 cents, and I'm looking forward to seeing the final ordinance when it comes from the assembly.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Anybody else? It'll get harder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So just as an opinion from Deputy Speaker Gessen and Delegate Killian, the legal opinion that we're going to be seeking, is that going to be questions sent to their attorney that they hired and they will pay for? Or is it going to be to our attorneys and something we'll have to pay for?
I don't think at this time we know. I honestly, to tie it up in a legal discussion seems to be not the best use of the money either. And I would hope to have some kind of explanation about how we got here before we make a decision on, are we going to get another opinion, or are we just going to go ahead and work with the delegates who's brought this to our attention and try to come up with something that in fact rings true for what we need to do. Does that make sense, Delegate Killian? Since you're
Just to weigh in briefly on that, I think agree. We work as an assembly to put forward an ordinance that takes into the consideration all of our concerns. And I suspect, if it's a question of cost, I suspect the administration will end up reviewing it again anyway, using their attorney. So we can decide if we would like to use our own attorney, because again, I mean, as we all know, I think we have a lawyer or two in this room, you can get 2 opinions on the same subject from 2 different attorneys. So it's really a matter of what information you're looking for. So I think we have a ways to go before we get to that point, but we certainly can discuss it.
Thank you. Thank you all. We'll move on now to the next is the calendar is a report from the Assembly of Delegates Standing Committee on Economic Affairs that met October 29th, 2025. I recognize Delegate Harder as chair of that committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we had the Standing Committee on Economic Affairs had a meeting on October 29th, 2025, on which we reviewed and finalized the draft transfer fee framework and recommendations developed by the drafting group. The framework outlines a proposed home rule petition allowing towns to voluntarily adopt a real estate transfer fee with nearly all revenue returned to the towns for housing related purposes. The committee agreed that the Registry of Deeds would collect the fee and that up to 10% of total proceeds could be reserved for administrative and regional purposes pending further analysis. Members emphasized maintaining flexibility in the framework while developing specific cost and revenue data in consultation with the registry and county administrator. The committee further reviewed the proposed regional housing component with members emphasizing the need for equity and additional analysis before determining how regional funds would be administered. The committee agreed to include language specifying that regional funding and attainable housing strategies would remain subject to further analysis and discussion before final recommendations are presented. So what all that means in a nutshell is that we have been working for months trying to figure out what this petition should say, what the towns would like the petitions to say, what other housing advocates would like the petition to say, the reason for the petition. And we have finally collected the various opinions and questions into this first draft that we voted on to present to you, to bring to your towns, to ask us to send, if there's people you want us to send it to, we will happily. And once, hopefully you'll get responses from your towns in a timely manner. And then we'll be able to review this document. And hopefully at that point, we'll be able to put together a home rule petition. Because right now this is just a draft. So we're not voting on anything today. And but it is time now that we've gone through the correct process and have studied this not ad nauseum, but have studied this quite a bit. Now it is time for the delegates to get involved with their communities, so that we know what your towns think about the issue, what they'd like to see, who they'd like us to talk to if they would. So that's where we stand.
Thank you very much. So next is the discussion on regional luxury.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. Oh.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Am I
Go ahead.
recognized?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank Chair Harder and the rest of the Committee on Economic Affairs for all the work you've done with this. I value the work you've done. In theory, I support. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So in theory, I support a luxury tax to help to fund in some way attainable housing. And I know there are a lot of details to work out. I know my town hasn't been contacted, and I'm happy to bring the proposal to them again. But to me, my basic concern is with the framework and the underlying assumptions. A real issue that I have with this is thinking back about the way we've developed the Cape historically. We developed housing, we put in all kinds of development without considering the environment and without considering water quality. And then we realized the grand problem we're experiencing with environmental concerns, loss of diversity, biodiversity, and most importantly, perhaps water quality. At that point, we stopped, we pivoted a little, and as towns, we voted in millions and millions of dollars to address wastewater. And we're doing that. We're nowhere near cleaning our waters. We know it's going to take years and years and years to do it. So to me, at this point, any plan that we put forward, and actually, I was heartened to listen to the regional policy plan, which has a grand focus on the environment. Any plan we put forward has to integrate housing and development, any kind of housing, with the environment. To look at these two separately, I think brings us back to what we did historically, which brought us to the environmental crisis we find ourselves in now. And I think, to me, it's critical to have environmental protection and the integration of environment and housing written into any document we put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Delegate, who has, did he have a, there was a hand up, but then it went down. Yes, Delegate Harder. Oh, now it's back.
Just to answer a question. Now I can't remember. Delegate Wyman Colombo asked a question about moving forward. Now I can't remember. Sorry.
If I may,
Yes.
through the speaker. Thank you. I don't have a question. I had a statement, and my statement is that I believe it's critical to integrate housing and environmental protection. And I don't believe this proposal does that, but I don't have a question.
Okay. Deputy Speaker Gessen, did you have something to add?
I know Delegate Frederickson has his hand up. Happy to speak after.
Okay. Delegate Frederickson.
Good evening again. First of all, I know you're doing a lot of hard work on this. This is a big subject, but it deserves a very long look at what we're doing. And quite personally, I don't feel like half of my questions have really been addressed at all by the committee. It's not your fault. It's just the process is kind of restrictive to get some of the things that just I have. So I can go to my town and have these answers one way or another. So I wish there was more dialogue among the assembly members. I read the thing, and I'm also baffled by the 10% for the county. And I can just say that most of the people I've talked to in our town do not want the county doing anything about housing other than collecting the money. And maybe there's a simpler way to do that where the county can submit a bill, all the money goes to town, and the county can submit a bill back to the towns to pay for whatever the administrative cost for handling the money is. So there's different things. Some of this stuff is pretty good. I know the numbers are fluctuating. Was it 2 million? Now it's 1 million. It's the percentages are different. Very non-specific. I just think we need more. And I wasn't, when I read this today, when I got it, I don't feel comfortable that this is a fair representation to bring to my town, say, here's what it is, and do more. However, it could create some more questions, which I think might be okay. But speaking to Ms. Colombo's comments, I appreciate the fact that you bring up the environment, because recently in my retirement jobs are starting to bring me all over the country. And I recently was in Colorado and Texas. And I was astonished to see what is taking place in those places, the development. And, you know, it's almost heartbreaking to see what we're doing to the environment. I mean, you see on such a massive scale that is taking place in these other states. It's like, was it sustainable? How are we doing this? So it brought me back to Cape Cod this is a very special place that we need to make sure we're taking care of the environment. We should be protecting every square inch of land, because once it's gone, it is gone. It's not coming back. So I'd love to see a little more language about the fact that we are conscious of following what the Cape Cod Commission just presented to us, paying attention to the environment. Redevelopment, I think, is key. You know, and some of the things I hear at some of the other groups, the advocacies, I'm just not sure we're covering everything here. I do, I'll have concerns. This is a lifetime proposition. One things I believe in is that this should be an end game on this. 5 years, 10 years, and this is over, unless we renew the whole thing. Because we're doing this based on an emergency crisis. So at some time that crisis may end. I just have a lot more questions. I feel like we need more dialogue, but if this is it, and I can bring it to my town, I can do it and discuss it, but it'll be, I don't think it's thorough enough. At least some of my own questions, like simple things. Are any of these fees tax deductible? I don't know. Are they? It'd be a nice question to ask because it can get a certain comfort level if we answer this.
Yeah, at this point, I think that the previous speakers kind of pointed out that this is still a work in progress. It's still in a draft mode, which means many things still can be happening. But I would like to ask the committee if perhaps someone could be delegated there to speak with you about, and I know which issues you're concerned about, because we did talk about a lot of the things that you brought to the bear, but I think that perhaps one-on-one time to go over those things as you go through it would help communicate which ones are deal breakers, basically. And I did not feel that I had the authority to do that. So I didn't say this one is, if we don't do it, it's not going to happen. So, yes.
Yeah, I agree with some good dialogue would be good from every one of us. I'm not the only one, I'm sure, that has concerns or questions that need to be clarified. Because if we're going to do this, I mentioned before, let's make this the best comprehensive plan that we can do that's fair to everybody, that's addressing the real issues that are confronting our housing. And let's do our very best right now, because we put some mistakes in here. It could have long-term effects and not do what we're thinking of doing.
Thank you very much.
I can't hear you.
Thank you very much. I know that Delegate O'Malley had his hand up. Delegate Sampson and Delegate Gessen, and I'll come to you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Madam Speaker, I would concur strongly with Delegate Wyman Colombo concerning the critical need for us to maintain environmental protections as we pursue development. However, I would say that I think this piece of legislation is not concerned with that, nor need it be. This is really, I think, about raising funding, creating a mechanism to raise funding to study how are we going to address the issue of available, accessible housing on the Cape. It certainly doesn't purport to direct where that housing might be developed or not developed. I think we have a lot of other existing framework, particularly, as was referenced, the Cape Cod Commission standards and recommendations that very heavily weigh against development of currently pristine areas and redevelopment as a much preferred clustering, redevelopment, et cetera. So I think those are addressed. I think what we're trying to do here is to support the towns who have sought state approval for a home rule petition to address their own issues. And I think what we're doing is in essence supporting that regional effort for us to find to make available housing that would create the sort of developments that we're currently now really unable to afford. This is money that's the great bulk of it is going to go back to the towns, at least 90%. We've talked about 10%, and I think we haven't fully settled on that number. That's kind of our administrative fee. But this is money that's going to go to the towns to do the jobs that they see as necessary in their own community. Stop.
Thank you. Delegate Sampson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've heard the other delegates speaking about that they have a lot of questions. I think that we need to take the time to sit down together and propose those questions and answer them. I know that I, for one, certainly don't want to go to my Board of Selectmen with a number of unanswered questions or tell them that we're still researching that. Because if that's our position now, then we haven't done our proper homework to present it to our communities. I know that my town is very skeptical about this, so I want to make sure that we have as many answers as we can, but more importantly, I want to make sure that every delegate has the same information. One of the worst things we can do is to go out to our boards of selectmen or our communities and be saying something different or answering a question that hasn't been addressed yet. So I hope that the delegates will consider that, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're back to Deputy Speaker Gessen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to speak on two things here. First, on the question of process, and then on the question of the policy laid out here in the framework. I know process has been central to the discussion of where we're at here, what we're considering, and why we're considering this, and how it's going to get drafted. And one big thing we heard from our communities is we need more answers before we can give you feedback. And that is absolutely valid. And on the flip side, did we want to make a lot of decisions before we got some kind of initial feedback from the towns? I don't think that would have been fair either. And I'm glad we didn't do that. I'm glad we provided towns with an opportunity to speak to us in broad strokes before we presented anything. I know this framework right here, as someone who's a fan of the transfer fee and a believer in it, looks very different than what I would have initially thought to propose as an individual delegate to this assembly. However, having gotten so much feedback on local control, the need for flexibility town by town, and questions about how money should be distributed, looking through the framework, local control is the bread and butter of it. And I think that's largely to thank the fact that we had multiple hearings and multiple opportunities for folks to weigh in. But at the same time, that's not the end all be all. And folks that want to make sure their towns have an opportunity to speak and provide constructive feedback on determined policy ideas could and will have that opportunity. There's a reason this is a framework right now in front of us now and a recommendation, and not a completely full-baked transfer fee, home rule petition. And that's because we got to start somewhere, and we've got to start answering some of the questions. There are, without a doubt, a lot of very specific in-the-weeds questions that folks will have and concerns that folks will have. Delegate Wyman Colombo raises important questions about the environmental impact of a transfer fee and how we can make sure we're not exacerbating one problem while fixing another. And I think that's something the committee should and will continue to consider. Delegate Frederickson named a number. I'm sure folks in the room have them. And I'm also confident that the chair of the Economic Affairs Committee, the speaker, and other folks are more than happy to hear those questions out and make sure they're talked through and resolved, because we all want something that actually works here, and we don't want perfect to be the enemy of the good. So on the question of process, I would encourage delegates to see this as step-by-step process. And you can't even know what the little questions and the minute questions and the specific questions are going to be until you answer some of the big ones. And I hope that folks can see this as answering 8 big questions in this framework and not closing the door on conversations going forward. There's a process ahead of us, and let's work together to actually make something good come out of this. That's where I'm at on process. On policy, I would encourage delegates to also see the gravity of what we're dealing with. I totally agree that the environment and our beautiful, rich natural resources that we have here on Cape Cod are critical to this community and the character of it and why we love it. But at the same time, another critical aspect of Cape Cod is not being a playground for the rich. You know, we are not just here so that people who can buy multi-million-dollar homes can come visit during the summer, eat at restaurants that are only staffed by folks with day one visas, and enjoy the beautiful, pristine water quality and pristine beaches, while our year-round people, our working people in our communities get pushed to the other side of the bridge. And I want to make sure we don't lose sight of that. Because when you're dealing with existential issues like the environment and like housing, there is sometimes this need to weigh them against each other when they really shouldn't be contradicting each other. If we're going to have a Cape Cod for generations, for future generations, it's going to be about crafting smart, thoughtful policy that protects our environment, that does not exacerbate issues of our environment, and also hand in hand, comes up with creative, well-funded solutions to have a year-round working class population here that we've always had. And I would just encourage delegates to not have necessarily see this as competing priorities, but come to the table with ideas on how we can make them work together. And those are not necessarily going to be easy. And I know we've had some concerns about legalese in this assembly meeting earlier today. I hate to break it to you, if we're going to have smart, thoughtful solutions here that are going to incorporate how we spend money while incentivizing good environmental policy, it's going to take some legalese. We're going to need to sit down and draft some, not necessarily the easiest language, and we're going to have to work together to make sure we agree on that language. But it's going to be a thoughtful process, and folks shouldn't feel like someone else is making the decision. We're a legislative body with 15 individual members, 15 individual communities, and it's each one of our members' responsibility to speak to our towns, to be the conduit between them, and to present our policy concerns and work together to draft them through our committee process, of course. But there is no single person here that's responsible for being an expert in every single policy criteria or communicating with each individual town. This is only going to work, and we're only going to work together if each one of us is able to feel like we can voice our concerns, provide constructive feedback, and also be the person that mediates between, like myself, between Falmouth and the Assembly. I can't expect, our newly elected speaker to do that for me. It's going to require us to provide an iterative process, answer big questions, get questions that are even smaller and more in the weeds, and continue to answer them. Because as Delegate Frederickson said, this is big stuff we're working on. Let's make sure we do it right, and I look forward to working with everyone to make sure we do that.
Delegate Colombo, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Deputy Speaker Gessen. I'm wondering if I wasn't as clear as I thought I was, so I'd like to reiterate. My concern is that we don't have two competing interests here. My concern is that we integrate these, that we move forward with any development, integrating environmental protection with the need for attainable housing. And that is I hear other people's concerns and I value them, and I think they're very valid concerns. My major concern is the underlying assumption in what we have and the framework. And what I'm asking for the environment is that we integrate these two, that we can't. Delegate O'Malley spoke about housing and that this is a housing plan. I value that. I think we've made that mistake, though, in the past when we look at housing and the environment separately. I think anything we do from this point forward as we're working to clean our waters has to be an integration of these two interests. And that's what I would like to see in any plan that we move forward. So I appreciate everybody's comments, and I hope I've made myself clearer. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well put. Delegate Harder, I think this will be the last comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I agree with everything everybody said. There are questions, and we're going to have to get answers. This is the process now. I asked for people to send in questions, and I got some in written form. I believe any that are, I believe if you have any questions, please put them in writing, because I tried to remember certain questions the delegate had discussed with the speaker, and I thought we addressed them all, but apparently we didn't. And if it's in writing, it makes it much easier to distribute to the committee, to have something in front of me to show me, oh, okay, I need that answer. Oh, I already have that. Oh, that's good. I don't know. So please put anything in writing. If you're concerned about something like Delegate Wyman Colombo, I would love to know, I'd love to see some ideas from her about what should be included, what the language should be, how we could integrate the two. That's the point we're at now. And part of that is, so far with the work we've done, we have come up with this draft framework that can be used to get all your questions out there, get the town's opinions, get this framework is never going to be perfect. We have to start somewhere. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This is where to start. Ask the questions. Send in writing the questions you have about this. Tell us take this to your towns and see what they have. If you would like me or someone else to come help you talk to your towns, or to have meetings with members of your town, I'd be happy to do that. We all would. We'd be very happy to have meetings. But this is the time now to take this and put it out into the world and see what we get. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one more.
At least. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I think we're all singing to the same tune here, but it's a question of where we go from here. I think the frustration I felt, and I think others have expressed it, is that we've been doing this for several months and we don't seem to be getting our arms around what it is we're trying to do. What problem are we trying to solve? We know, but how big is that problem? We're talking about potentially collecting and spending hundreds of millions of dollars addressing this. And I don't think anything has really been discussed as to how that comes about. And I know that I've spoken to my town a little bit and need to speak a little bit more. But I think we should strongly consider breaking this discussion up into smaller pieces, putting them in our subcommittees. I suggest, as the chair of my subcommittee, coming up with some questions or parts that we want to solve. Perhaps we should start at the Finance Committee, because this is it's financial, is in its entirety. But I think if we're going to move forward, because we seem to be kind of speaking a little bit circular here, we talk about having discussions, but we don't really have a concrete plan, as has been pointed out, just specifically how this program integrates in with the environmental concerns. I mean, we really need some concrete plans. We say, okay, then 10% of what we spend has to go towards wastewater control for new subdivisions, something like that. But I think we're lacking a great deal of specificity. And I think that's what we should probably be focusing on now, just to see how this program will work. I don't think anyone is not in favor of trying to create a system which enhances the lifestyle of the people that live here. I don't think anyone's against that. But I think we also have to look at what it is we're going to create. If there's other things than just obviously the attainable, affordable housing, we have the infrastructure that goes along with it. We have the roads and the schools that we have to consider as well. So I think we can address this in relatively short order if we break it up into the smaller pieces again with our subcommittee format.
It'll get harder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just gonna reiterate, you said we're stuck. Now, we're not stuck. Take this. If you want to take this to a committee, please, that'd be fabulous. Take it to your towns. Take it to the finance committee. Take it to other entities you think can move this forward. Now is the time. It's not perfect. We have a lot of questions to ask. This is the first step towards doing that. We want that to happen. So take it to committees, take it to places. That's what we're asking for now. We've given you this framework consisting of what we have collected so far, and we feel like to do so on our own in Economic Affairs Committee would not be helpful at this point until we put this out to the greater community. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're asking you to do. And it's not going to be perfect now. It can't be, because now it's time for you to get us the information you think we need to know. So that's why I think this is the next step. I don't think we're stuck. I think this is what moves us forward to the next step, not the last step, not the second to last. It's taking us just to the next step. Thanks.
Thank you. I will address Delegate Friedrichsen as the last to speak to this, but I do want to just say something in regards to the last couple of conversations, and also say something that Delegate Sampson brought up, which is the fact that when you bring, there's been a lot of discussion about this plan, which never really saw the light of air to any of the communities. And I share his concern when he says, if you bring it to them now and you don't have all these answers, that it will not help in the movement to get this moving forward. It could just get completely stalled. And I would hate to see that happen after all this. What I would suggest is that we have one more economic committee meeting, and at which time perhaps Delegate Frederickson and Delegate Wyman Colombo could participate in providing insight from areas that they see that could be melded as a combined effort for both the environment and housing, which I happen to agree. We've lost sight of the environmental part, and we don't need to. So I sometimes perception is the wrong thing, but sometimes it drives a conclusion that shouldn't have happened. And I don't want that to happen with this. So maybe if we made one more stab at rewriting after, and certainly if there was any other delegates who had some additional interest that they would like to make sure is heard to the committee, that they might also attend, and with your permission as the chair, you could, yeah, I think if that would be an acceptable solution, that would be great. And it's now over to you, Delegate Frederickson.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time. I agree that we need to do a little bit more. I mean, as a delegate, I have questions. I just need to get to the committee and ask more of them. And, whether I agree or disagree with them, I just have to get the questions answered and be able to sell it, just like Delegate Sampson said. If we go there with the same questions and we don't have answers, we're going to look, it's going to be a non-starter. And this is serious. When we're deciding to ask to take somebody's money and give it to somebody else, that's a big deal. I want to make sure we're doing it right and it's for the right reasons. I think we got a baseline for that, but let's make it work for everybody. I'm done.
Okay, next on the calendar are orders of the day. And the only item is a proposed resolution 2512 in support of supplemental nutritional program SNAP for Barnstable County. And may I have a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2025-12?
Second.
Okay, thank you. The motion has been seconded, and Delegate Wyman Colombo, would you like to speak first as the prime speaker, as the prime sponsor?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There she is.
I think the resolution is fairly self-explanatory. The goal of the resolution is to take as politically neutral as far as the greater political scheme. The issue that so many of our residents, members of our community are facing, and that's food insecurity, that's certainly been exacerbated by furloughs, people who aren't getting paid, and an interruption in SNAP benefits. I know our local food banks are really overburdened at this time of year. It's a very difficult time of year coming into the holidays. This is when they typically are trying to stock up on enough food to ensure that families get enough support throughout the holiday season. So this could not have come at a worse time for the most vulnerable residents in our community. I really appreciate the fact that the Board of Regional Commissioners reviewed and approved this resolution with an edit which actually strengthens it. They identified the 22,000 folks across Cape Cod that rely on SNAP benefits in order to feed their families. So that's the crux of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Is requested to be amended to the proposed resolution number 12, which is after the third line. And the line to be inserted is, whereas, comma, there are 22,000 SNAP beneficiaries on Cape Cod, comma, and. So do I have?
You accept an amendment?
Yeah.
Is that a way to accomplish this? Can I move that we add a line for, whereas there are over 22,000 SNAP beneficiaries, that mirrors what the commissioners have passed?
Madam Speaker, yeah, if you can amend the language of the initial motion was for the resolution as it's in front of you. So anybody can make a motion to amend the language of what's in front of you. And you can take a vote on that amendment and then a vote on the resolution as amended. So.
Okay. So
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm completely in support of this resolution. However, I understand the timing. It's critical. I wish this had been sent to us yesterday, because watching the commissioners meeting this morning, they thought this was an approved resolution from the assembly. They thought we'd already approved it and they amended it. And I don't know if what we're voting on now is their amended motion or not. And then do we send it back to them? I was just really taken aback that the commissioners were voting this morning on a resolution from the Assembly of Delegates that none of us had ever seen. Thank you.
Would you like to address?
Well, normally a resolution that is the opinion of the county has to originate here. However, I believe, and they can speak to it, sponsors of this were working with the board to make sure that we didn't get held up in process. And so the board kind of, I don't have the motion in front of me, but moved to accept this with the understanding that you would approve it tonight. It will go back to them for ratification if they want to afterwards, but the motion that's in front of you is for the resolution that's in front of you. And now there's a motion on the floor to amend that resolution by adding this language. So that's the question in front of us now only, which is whether to accept this amendment or not. And then you would have to take a vote on the resolution as amended. And it will go to the board and they will either act on it within 10 days or not. But I think the intent was to work with them to get something done quicker than that 10 days because of the emergent nature of the situation.
Delegate O'Malley.
Would it not be the case that if we add an amendment that makes the language of both ordinances exactly the same, that there's no real need for it to go back? We will have adopted what they did, it seems to me. We want to move this along.
Yes.
It has to go back pursuant to 3.8 in the charter legally. But in effect, what you're saying is correct. I assume that what will happen once you pass this tonight is that the speaker will work with the chair of the board and Mr. Dutton and I and Emma will work with their executive assistant to get out some kind of letter or some kind of action. But yes, we're doing things a little bit out of order because of the nature of what we're talking about and the time sensitive nature of it.
So we vote on the amendment then.
Got
Oh, somebody, hold on. Oh, I see a couple more. There we, Deputy Speaker Geffen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Supportive of the amendment. I think it makes the resolution stronger. I would like to say, however, I really support this resolution. I think it's a good gesture to support the SNAP program, especially now to really emphasize how urgently members in our community need it, and that you can't afford to simply cut it off, especially this time of year. I would also like to say,
Deputy Speaker, what we have on the floor right now is the amendment only, not the actual proposed resolution 12.
Okay, I'll raise my hand later.
Delegate Frederickson? No? Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to say that this is not out of line with what we've done before. I know that I have written resolutions that were very time sensitive. I've sent them on to the commissioners through the speaker, through the clerk, myself, and they've passed them. We've passed them. We've sent them on, and then then they go back and forth as per the outline of the clerk recently. So I don't think that this is out of the norm to just go ahead. The amendment makes it stronger. If we just vote on the amendment and vote on the resolution, I don't think it's inconsistent with what we've done before. Thank you.
You're looking to me, I assume, to recognize me because you'd like a roll call on the amendment.
Yes.
The amendment is for the line that I believe you all have in your packet in red that says that 22,000 SNAP
Beneficiaries on
Okay,
page
got it.
5.
Yes. That's the question, Madam Speaker, on the amendment?
Mhm.
All right, Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Frizzell, Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gasson.
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder,
Sure.
Delegate Killian,
Yes.
Delegate King. Dean Omen, Delegate O'Malley.
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Delegate Warner,
Yes.
or Speaker Warner, Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, that is 13 delegates representing 89.09% of the county's population in favor of the amendment. You would now need a motion on the resolution as amended and need discussion first.
Delegate Killian.
Yes, the discussion. The question to the author is this, and it's certainly well-intentioned resolution. So from what has been reported, I've heard that the emergency funds are only going to last weeks, a matter of weeks for this program. So my question is, why haven't we also included in this resolution sending a letter to our two U.S. senators, encouraging them to vote to approve the continuing resolution, which I believe they voted for in the spring. This is the same thing, to end this shutdown and fund this thing and move on. I mean, is there a reason we're not sending that letter to encourage them to vote for this funding and move forward as the authors of this? Can someone weigh in on that?
Delegate Colombo, can you answer that?
I can. There's no reason not to include the senators or anybody else. The important thing, as I see it, and I believe I'll let the other authors speak for themselves. The most important thing for us as Barnstable County and is to advocate for SNAP benefits for the most needy of our population. Whoever we send this to, I think I would support that fully. So there's been no intention not to send it to different people. My intention as I was drafting was to try to stay at the macro level as apolitical as possible. The goal is to move SNAP forward, and that to me is the most important thing for the residents that we serve. So I would have no objection to adding senators in.
Thank you. Oh, Delegate Gessen?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to speak in support, obviously, of the resolution. I think it's important. I think no one would disagree with the fact that SNAP benefits are critical any time of year, especially coming into the winter, coming to the holidays, coming most importantly into the time of year where a significant amount of our Cape Cod residents and constituents are not employed in the seasonal workforce that we have here. Without a doubt, SNAP is critical. In addition to that, I think I would also encourage my colleagues to think about what else we can do on top of this resolution. I think the Cooperative Extension obviously does fantastic work. This resolution is important, and it's important for the county and Cape Cod to speak with one voice. But in addition to that, a lot of entities can advocate. The League of Women Voters can send a letter. The Falmouth Democratic Town Committee can send a letter to their representatives, to their congressmen, to their U.S. senators, and say SNAP is important, and without a doubt, we should too. But we are not just some group of 15 people. We are the legislature of Cape Cod, and I know we're relatively young as a legislature, only being 50 years old. I know we are not used to necessarily exercising the same muscles of policy that the towns do at the local level and the state and the federal level. But I would encourage possibly a meeting of our Health and Human Services Committee. Apologize if I butchered the name there. To see what else we can do. We are the regional government of Cape Cod. And maybe the answer is there's nothing the regional government can do. But at the same time, when there are people who don't have food in our communities, when there are people that are going hungry in our communities because of things outside our control, I feel like the onus is on us to see if there's something more we could do. Not because we don't do enough here, but because sometimes we don't know until we ask the questions. So I would just like to encourage my colleagues here to think about possibly taking additional steps beyond this to see what it is we can do to alleviate the hunger crisis that we have and are acknowledging in this resolution. So I just want to say I think there's more steps forward. And I look forward to working with anyone who's willing to work with me.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Delegate Frederickson.
That's a great idea, Dan. I've done a lot of that in my previous career, and there are things we can do, and I gladly work with you. I understand Delegate Killian's concerns. I had similar ideas, but I think maybe we can correct that on, I don't know what line you have, but on page 2, line 9, I would like to make a motion that we change that language to read, we request that the federal government take any necessary action to restore SNAP benefits.
I'll second that.
Might I add to the motion if we're making an amendment?
Hold on, please, if you would, Delegate Green. We'll get back to you.
I don't
Okay.
think we have a motion on the floor yet.
Okay, we don't.
Amendment.
Oh, he made an amendment.
Lights. Did not hear anybody say, I move to amend this resolution to do whatever. We need a motion and then a second, and then we can discuss. I assume.
I thought that
that's
I
what
said that I
Delegate-
wanted to make a motion.
Okay.
You
So you're making a
did.
motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. Okay, thank you. So, all right, back to Delegate Green.
So if we are going to amend this, or we're voting to amend it, I would also, with Delegate Frederickson's approval, I'd like to add that we add CCs at the end of this to our Cape delegation as well as our federal delegation, and I think and our governor, so that would cover the discussion we just had. If Delegate Frederickson would agree to add that to the motion. And Delegate O'Malley, I think, seconded it, if he would agree to add that as well.
Hold on a second. Procedure. There's a procedure we need to follow, so.
Two separate amendments.
It doesn't have to be.
Actually, it does. There's one subject per motion, and so we can vote on Delegate Frederickson's amendment, and then you can make another one if you wish. But we've got one on the floor with a second and are on that.
Oh, discussion?
Yep. Just to clarify, Delegate Frederickson, your amendment, do you want to include the language with emergency funds as well as permanent funds, or are you trying to supplant that whole line?
Yeah, I was going to improve on that line 9 on page 2, where it currently says the federal government must release emergency funds, etc. Change it to, we request the federal government to take any necessary action to restore SNAP benefits.
Thank you.
Delegate Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was in favor of amending this to bring it into line with the language that the commissioners passed this morning. I would, however, oppose any amendment that further elaborates on this resolution.
You're looking to me for a roll call, Madam Speaker,
So are we roll call?
on Delegate Frederickson's amendment.
Okay, on Delegate Frederickson.
Oh, you've got Delegate.
Hold on.
Thanks. Can you please read what the language would be in the amendment?
Delegate Frederickson.
Okay, it would say, we request the federal government to take any necessary action to restore SNAP benefits.
And remove line 9 as it stands.
Yeah, that would take place of line 9.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like a roll call, Madam Speaker? Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Frizel, Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher,
No.
Deputy Speaker Gasson.
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder,
No,
Delegate Killian,
Yes.
Delegate King,
No.
Dean Omen, Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
No.
Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
It's 9 in favor, representing 68.89% of the county's population. We're back, we're back to the resolution as amended.
Back to a resolution as amended.
Yeah, it hasn't been moved.
Well, Speaker Warner, may I make one more?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'd like to move that we add the CCs as I've described for the Cape delegation, the federal delegation, and the governor to the end of the resolution.
I'll second the amendment motion.
Thank you.
Discussion? Delegate Harder?
I don't think that needs to be an amendment. I think that's just, we always, whenever we're sending a letter or something, we always ask, we're always allowed to ask once it's been passed or whatever, to make sure certain people are CC'd. I don't think that needs to be a full amendment.
Does it need to be?
What needs to happen? There's a motion to amend it to put the CCs on. You can vote the motion up or down.
I can withdraw it if it's possible to do that anyway. I can just withdraw the amendment. It's okay. Well,
Okay, Delegate, Deputy Speaker Gethin.
Oh, I was seconding Delegate Green's withdrawal, if that was a motion.
Okay,
Would you like a motion on the resolution as amended, Madam Speaker?
yes.
I mean, not a motion, I'm sorry, a roll call.
Yes.
Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Frizel, Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher,
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gasson.
Yes.
Delegate Green,
yes.
Delegate Harder,
Yes.
Delegate Killian.
Yes.
Delegate King.
Yes.
Dean Omen, Delegate O'Malley. Yes. Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
That passes.
Okay, it passes. Okay, do you have new business?
I do have new business. I believe we've got a resolution by Delegate O'Malley and others on Medicare for All, which I'm gonna number resolution 2025-13. We also have the Cape Cod Commission submitting the regional policy plan as an ordinance. Also confusingly, ordinance 2025-13. Let's hope we get that taken care of and unstaggered soon. It's very confusing. That's all I have, I believe, for new business, but as normal, if any of these new items get referred to committee, I will be in touch for quorum. That's all I have for new business.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just going to ask to see if we will either, if the Assembly would agree to sign on to a letter or write our own quick letter of support to the state, asking them to preserve the dredging program funding. I think the dredge is the most important thing, one of the most important things the county does for the towns. They would in no way, shape, or form be able to afford private dredging, even if they could find it. And it's just, I'm just asking that we write a quick letter or sign on in support of the Board of Commissioners letter asking them to preserve the dredge funding that the state gives the towns. Thank you.
We're gonna do individual letters or one letter from the Assembly. I think one letter from the Assembly, no?
That's up to people. I mean, maybe it's just easier if we all want to send one. You know.
Can I for a second? We this is announcements. We don't have we're not on this isn't on the business calendar. We can't take it up. So if you wanted to do a joint letter of the Assembly, you'd have to
Okay.
for another Assembly.
All right.
meeting to do it.
Okay, got it.
Okay, thank you. I'll chat about this at the next meeting, but after 4 years, the good news is we are prepared to buy each delegate a computer that is going to be set up exactly like the various areas that we need to address from the agendas, from the stuff that that Owen has already set up for us to tie in to look at what's coming up for the next meetings. Everything will be on that computer. You can bring it to the meetings. You can put all your stuff in on the meetings. So you'll have one item which has everything there, and then it will also give, it's pretty exciting because it will give the IT department the ability, if you have a problem, to actually remotely go in and fix it for you. So that a lot of these issues that we all have because we have different computers and different upgrades and different types should be eliminated by this process. And the computer will pass from delegate to delegate. So it's not a computer that you're getting to keep forever, but I think it should make a huge difference in some of the things that we've been doing, and I'm looking forward to it. The clerk and the assistant clerk are actually going to meet with IT later this week and set up what they think it'll be, and then all this stuff will be loaded on the computers as we do it. And then as they get older, we'll retire them and replace them with anything that's new. But I think it's an exciting move. So that's all I'll say for now. Terry, you don't look too happy.
More computer to lug
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Okay, then take a roll call.
Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Frizel, Delegate Fuller.
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gessen.
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder,
Yes.
Delegate Killian,
Yes.
Delegate King,
Yes.
Dean Omen, Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
you.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
Thank you.